What's up, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and we're back for another Top 10 Tuesday. This week, we're going to go Dungeons & Dragons themed, as we're in the process of filming a 25-part Dungeons & Dragons review. Figured, why not keep it in theme? So, for this week, we're going to be talking about my top 10 spells in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. So, number 10 is Magic Missile. Classic spell. A lot of people know about this spell from the Dead Alewives or 8-bit D&D with the shooting magic missile at the darkness, but it's a classic, you can't really beat it, and in this edition it got a little bit of a buff because at first level you're actually shooting 3 magic missiles, same damage as it normally has of a D4 plus 1, but you're shooting 3 at first level, and I think that was probably because the overall reduction in the amount of spells you can have in 5th edition. And if you really wanted to blow a 9th level spell slot and cast 11 magic missiles, you can. So, there you go. Number 9 is Guidance. It is a very useful spell, especially for a cantrip. Unfortunately, it's limited to just clerics and druids in the base game, although I guess bards could waste the magical secrets to take it, and there may be some other finaglings between spell scrolls and things like that to get access to it. But the fact that it's one action, it's a cantrip, you can do it as much as you want, and it adds a 1d4 to any ability check roll, pretty solid, especially since initiative is technically an ability check. It's concentration based and it lasts a minute, so there's really nothing stopping you from constantly casting guidance on yourself everywhere you go for your entire game. And then you get into combat. Well, yes, I got a d4 on my initiative roll. Do that, then drop the concentration and move on to actual combat. Yeah, you can't really beat it for a cantrip. If you can find a way to get it or have somebody that can use it, anytime you have to make any sort of skill-based check, let me see if I can persuade this guy. Here's a d4. Let me see if I can intimidate this guy. Let's try to pick this lock. Let's try to break down that door. You really can't beat it. Number 8 is Destructive Wave. Currently, in one of the games of D&D 5th edition that I'm playing a Paladin, so I'm a little bit biased here, and this is sort of almost a capstone type thing I can look forward to for 17th level if I continue to stick it out for Paladin for that long. But it's basically Paladin's best damaging AoE spell. That's the biggest thing that Paladins suffer from in this game because they don't have much to deal with crowds, but it's a 30-foot radius spell, instantaneous. You strike the ground with Holy Might and 30-foot radius around you. They make a Constitution saving throw and then take 5d6 thunder damage and 5d6 radiant or necrotic damage. And if they don't pass the saving throw, they also get knocked prone. And it's each creature you choose, so allies are safe. It's pretty solid, but I don't know how useful it's going to be for a Paladin at 17th level. Still good for taking out a lot of trash mobs and stuff like that, but Tempest Clerics can get it at, I think, 9th level. So that's pretty good for them. But yeah, overall nice high damage spell and something that Paladins have to look forward to. Number 7 is Elvish Blast. If you play 5th edition and you've looked at the damaging cantrips, then you know Elvish Blast by and far the best one there is, especially if you're playing a Warlock. 120-foot range, spell attack, 1d10 force damage, one of the only ways to consistently do force damage, and it scales as you level for damage, and rather than doing just additional damage per roll, like something like a firebolt that does 2d10 as it gets better, it actually shoots individual bolts, and you can shoot up to, at 17th level, it's 4 bolts. So you can choose to have each one hit the same person or have them all split and hit 4 different people. And if you're now a Warlock and you take the Agonizing Blast invocation, each one of those adds plus whatever your Charisma modifier is. If you have it at max, it's 5. So 4 shots that do a d10 plus 5, and it's a free thing that you can do anytime you want. Pretty solid, and after the most recent Player's Handbook errata, it kind of makes it by and far better than anything an Evocation Wizard or a Dragon Blood Sorcerer can do. So, if you can get access to that, there's a couple of feats and things like that. I highly recommend it. I don't really think there's much more to say. Number 6 is Heat Metal. I know that might sound a little bit weird, but as far as damage spells go, for a second level spell and something that I know bards have access to, and they don't have a whole lot of flat out damaging spells, Heat Metal's kind of dirty. Essentially, you pick somebody within 60 feet of you or something metal, and you just make it really hot. Could be a sword, could be, a lever, or could be armor, which is why I'm putting this on this list. Anybody in contact with it takes 2d8 fire damage, and it lasts until the spell. You can choose a bonus action each round to continue to do this damage every turn. Lasts for a minute, so that's 10 rounds in combat. And if they're holding it, say it's a sword, they have to drop it. Makes sense. If they can't drop it, they're at disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the start of your next turn. So, if they're wearing armor, most armor in this game takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes sometimes to take off. So, you just put this damage on them, and it's a bonus action to keep it up every turn. 2d8 damage every single turn for a minute, so 10 rounds in combat. It will take them... The spell will run out and be done by the time it would take them to actually take the armor off. So in the meantime, they're at disadvantage at pretty much everything, and you're just getting free bonus damage on them. And you can upcast it out of a 3rd level slot, so each slot you cast it up as another d8 of damage. So really, I mean, I know, especially in the lower levels, and even in the higher levels, you're going to run into a lot of enemies that are wearing armor, whether it be chainmail, splint mail, plate mail, whatever it is. The only thing I think that's kind of rough about this is if you're a player and you use this on the monsters, there's nothing from stopping the DM from having the monsters use it on you. So you got to manage that. But if you do it, just try to go hit the guy and make them drop concentration. But yeah, for a 2nd level spell, that seems kind of maybe not like a great choice. You can use it to your advantage. Number 5 is Find Steed. I already told you I'm playing a Paladin, so there's a little bit of bias here. But it's not as great as a Paladin class feature mount from previous editions, but it's the best thing we're going to get. 10-minute cast time, you can keep your Steed out for as long as you like. Got the book right here in front of me, but what's nice is you could pick a warhorse, you could pick... It actually lists a couple other things, a pony, a camel, an elk, a mastiff if you're a small type character. So it's really up to your DM. I lucked out and Sean's running the game for me and he let me choose a bear, so that was pretty solid because a bear's a little tankier than a horse. What's great though is you give it some sort of a template, Celestial, Fey, or Fiend. It gets its intelligence boosted up to 6, so it's smart enough and it can actually understand any language that you speak of your choice. Serves in your mount, allows you to control it a lot better than you would if it was, say, just a horse. And while you're mounted on your steed, you can make any spell that you cast target both you and the steed, which is nice for any kind of heal, like, oh, you're targeting you with, say, I don't know, Cure Wounds, it cures the steed, or maybe a damaging spell or something like that. What else is there? It leaves no physical form behind, so when it dies, it technically gets transported to some pocket universe where it lives, and when you summon it back, you actually summon the same one. So you can shunt it back and forth into the dimension, bring it back, it's back at full health with all the stuff that you... potentially with all the stuff you left on it based on what your DM's call is. And you can communicate with it as telepathically as long as it's within a mile of you. Pretty solid. I think a lot of its benefits are better than Find Familiar, which has a lot more limitations, which is again is a wizard or arcane caster based spell. So yeah, I'm just a big fan. It's Paladin bias flat out, but I like Find Steed. Again, if you're a bard and you can get access to that with your magical secrets, maybe it's not the worst thing to choose. Number 4 is a cantrip yet again, and this time it's Vicious Mockery. It is a bard-based cantrip, one of the only classes that gets it through normal means. And it's just a really funny spell. I'm actually playing a bard in a different D&D 5th edition campaign, and I have Vicious Mockery, and I love it. Essentially, what it is you insult or whatever the opposing, I guess insult since it's mockery, and it's laced with arcane magic, so your insults are so powerful that they actually cause physical psychic damage to the opponent. It works 60 feet away, it's only verbal, so if you're bound up, you can still, not gagged, you can still, insult people and deal damage. They have to be able to hear you, they don't necessarily need to understand what language you're speaking. If they fail the save, they take a d4 psychic damage, and they have disadvantage on their next attack roll, which is pretty solid. And it's a cantrip, so it scales up. I mean, the most it's ever going to do is 4d4, and that's at 17th level. But, I mean, it's pretty great. And depending on the situation, you might be able to work this in an out-of-combat thing, where, like, so-and-so, they're getting in, like, a boxing match, and you're like, come on, you baby. And then be like, tell the DM, well, no, that was actually Vicious Mockery. Let's add a d4 psychic damage to that guy. And psychic damage is another one of those rare damage types. So I guess if you're really hurting to try to damage a bear totem barbarian, this is one way to get around the psychic damage, or to get through their not being resistant to psychic damage. So as far as cantrips go, it's fun and based on your DM and how they care about it. If you're just saying I cast Vicious Mockery, then that's fine, but maybe you want to take the flavor to the next level and actually do the insulting yourself. Number 3 is Contagion. If you want to talk about a potentially really overpowered spell, Contagion. 5th level spell, only accessible by clerics and druids. First off, it's touch, so you gotta be that close unless you have a means to cast spells from a distance. Like some weird multi-classing with sorcerer with meta magic. But the duration is 7 days. So essentially, if you make this touch attack, they are inflicted with this disease. So again, people with immunity to disease get around this, but the creature must make a Constitution saving throw. After failing 3 of these saving throws, the disease's effect lasts for the duration, so 7 days. After succeeding on 3 of the saving throws, they pass. And it's a natural disease. So there's 6 different diseases you can choose from. And I'm just going to read them to you because they are nuts. Blinding sickness. Pain grips the creature's mind, its eyes turn milky white. They have disadvantage on wisdom checks and wisdom saving throws, and now they're blind, potentially for 7 days. Filth fever. A raging fever sweeps through the creature's body and has disadvantage on strength checks, strength saving throws, and attack rolls that use strength. Flesh rot. The creature's flesh decays. The creature has disadvantage on charisma checks and vulnerability to all damage. That's double damage from everything. Mind fire. The creature's mind becomes feverish. The creature has disadvantage on intelligence checks and intelligence saving throws, and the creature behaves as if it's under the effect of confusion spell during combat. That can be pretty useful because you can use confusion to almost shut down enemies completely. My favorite, we're getting there though. Seizure. The creature is overcome with shaking. The creature has disadvantage on dex checks and dex saving throws and attack rolls that use dex. And probably everybody's go-to is Slimy Doom. The creature begins to bleed uncontrollably. The creature has disadvantage on Constitution checks and Constitution saving throws. In addition, whenever it takes damage, it's stunned until the end of its next turn. So, just to give you a little clarification on stunned, creature who's stunned is incapacitated, can't move, and can't speak, and can speak only falteringly. The creature automatically fails strength and dex saving throws. Attack rolls against this creature have disadvantage. So, when you're also incapacitated, can't take actions or reactions. So each time they get hit, potentially, for 7 days, or 1 combat if you manage to hit the big boss with it, everybody has advantage on their attack rolls, and they can't do anything. So you just destroy them. Other than, giving them double damage by causing their flesh to rot off. Contagion made it through the first wave of errata with no changes, so talk about an OP spell. Take down that big boss, one shot. Well, I guess in keeping with this theme of a ton of cantrips on this list, number 2 is Prestidigitation. Aside from being a very difficult spell to say, especially after a couple of beers, it's one of those spells, one of the flavor-based cantrips. There's actually quite a few in this game. This was a big one in previous editions, because with a lot of these type of cantrips, Minor Illusion, Thaumaturgy, Druidcraft, they're really only limited to your imagination, and I mean a little bit by the mechanics of the game, but you can do a lot with these if you take the time to really figure out what you can get away with, as far as the what it says in the book versus what your DM will actually allow. So this one works at range, which is nice, 10 feet away, and the duration can be up to an hour. And you can create minor spell effects. You can create an instantaneous, harmless sensory effect, shower of sparks, a puff of wind, faint musical notes, or an odd odor. Light or snuff a candle, torch or small campfire. Instantaneously clean or soil an object no larger than a cubic foot. Chill, warm, or flavor up to 1 cubic foot of non-living material. Make a color, a small mark, or a symbol appear on a surface for an hour. You create a non-magical trinket or an illusory image that can fit in your hand and that lasts until the end of your next turn. I think you can create up to 3 of these at a time. Things I've used this for in game, just like, you killed something, you're in a dungeon, you're trying to prevent people from finding you, clean up the blood. You pick up some nasty goblin armor that you want, clean the goblin armor. That way it's not all gross. You have food that's been, you have food that you want to preserve. You could chill it an hour at a time. You can flavor up the food. That way people think you're a great cook. Make somebody hit that guy. Make that faint odor. And make this guy looks like he crapped his pants. Pretty solid as far as cantrip goes. So, highly recommend it. And number 1 on this list is Animate Objects. It is a 5th level spell. It's not the most crazy spell, but I had a great time using it in a game I just played the other day. So I'll give you just a quick rundown of this. It works out to 120 feet, lasts up to a minute. It's 10 rounds of combat. You pick some stuff and you animate it. And they come to life and they fight for you. You can choose up to 10 non-magical items. 10 covers small or tiny and small size. Medium, each medium item that you animate counts as 2. Each large counts as 4, and huge count as 8. You can't animate anything larger than that. And they animate and come to life, and they're under your control or till they're reduced to 0 hit points. As a bonus action, you mentally command them, as long as it's within 500 feet of you. You decide what they're going to do, and let's see. If they have legs, they walk. So if you animate a table, the table will walk. If they don't have legs, they fly. So maybe pick things that don't have legs. They have their own AC, hit points, all different stats. A lot of their intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are 1, so hopefully they don't try to get charmed. If you command the object to attack, you can make a single melee attack against a creature within 5 feet. Makes a slam attack with an attack bonus and bludgeoning damage determined by its size. The DM might rule a specific object might inflict slashing or piercing or whatnot. So what I did in this game is I just carried a bag of forks and threw the forks up in the air, animated the 10 forks, and then sent my fork fleet to go murder the enemies. Forks are tiny size, so they each have 20 HP, an AC of 18. They have a +8 to hit, and they do a D4 +4 damage. So, I mean, at minimum, in this game, you roll a 1. That's 1 + 4 is 5. Each one of those forks, if they hit, will kill a kobold, which I actually did in that game. 10 forks killed 10 kobolds. And you can upcast it. For each spell slot above 6, you can animate 2 more objects. So, I'll go the other end of the spectrum. If you were to animate a huge object has 80 HP, 10 AC, +8 to hit, and does 2d12 +4 damage. So, I mean, and it also has a strength of 18, so maybe you're a weak sorcerer and you can't push that door open, but you could animate this statue or this bookshelf to knock the door open for you, or whatever. Just a lot of utility, and another one of those spells seems to be kind of my thing, is I like spells that, as long as you get creative with the use, they can do all sorts of crazy things for you. So that's it for me, guys. If you have 10 favorite spells in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, 1 spell, 5 spells, whatever, let me know. I'm curious to see what other people like to use. Almost all of these I've seen in play, done myself, or seen others play and use them to their advantage. So how about you? Maybe not your favorite, but the spell you find most useful. So let me know. Be on the lookout for more D&D related reviews and videos, along with a couple more Top 10 Tuesday videos in the near future. See you next time.